Okay, so don't tell the rental property managers, but I need to cut some of these in half. I don't think they care if I use hand tools, but the circular saw is a different story. Quick walkthrough in terms of strategy. Obviously, there's a knot. This is grain that isn't, I mean, it's really hard, but as you can see, it's already cracked this way, which means it wants to fall apart that way. It's already falling apart that way. This is smaller, but it's kind of doing the same thing. This one's definitely kind of working its way this way, but you've got a chunk of wood running through here. So if you wanted, let's say, a table support, because you have decent thickness, so if you wanted to have a board to hold up a tabletop, you could maybe get 1 or 2 or 3 by splitting this in half and keeping this long. Otherwise, if you're trying to do a wider glue up, or you just literally glue up boards, so let's say you want to glue it up, you cut it here, and then you cut it here, and that gives you clear wood. One thing I'm going to show you though is that part of the board is actually, it's a little cupped, so it's going to be thinner, and then a lot of it's bark. So the wood is angling up this way, the solid stuff that you want. And there's a split here. So this makes it a little easier in my book to say, I'm gonna cut it where I have more thickness, probably here, and then I'll just figure out what I can get out of the rest of the board. I kind of held off on moving this stuff out. As you can see, I'm clearing out my exterior space, and so I need to trim the kind of the rotten parts off the plywood. But I hung on to these boards because they're really long. I feel like this guy is kind of a knot here. It's a bit of a star. That might be a good place to cut it, but it has some issues. You know, there's a lot of character here from the sawmilling, but I think this is not going to be particularly strong. This area right here, where it looks like it's kind of maybe stress fracture. It kind of cracked along. Sometimes the branches will grow funny, or maybe it's a fork. But whatever it is, you can see that there's a pocket here where there's a void. This guy is kind of tough because there's no obvious place to say, you know, this is a pretty minor fix here. But what I would probably do with this is just cut it right in half. Although it gets narrow here. And so if I was making nightstand tops, somewhere up here someplace, and then maybe two pieces here, and then try to squeak in a piece here, but it would depend on the design. This guy is kind of on the border. It's gonna end up being a legs for burritos, which are the benches I make. I may just take that one piece and then figure it out later, which gives me more options, obviously. This one, I think I'd go right through that. I'm gonna call it a bullet hole, but it's just a knot. So I would cut through here. The grain is pretty swirly, and I think that would be, there's kind of actually a cool knot here, but again, like the knots can make the wood weak. So again, it's a judgment call. Same thing's happening down here, so maybe they could be offset depending on the design. This is really cool, but it's also kind of weak, so you need to make sure that gets fit into your design and accounts for that swirliness. Otherwise, you have some straight grain down there, more or less. You have a lot of straight grain up here, although we've got some bugs here, and that's a problem, so that needs to get cut out and burned. Make sure that doesn't affect the wood. It's just a marker dot. So This one has some serious, just you can pick it. If you can pick it out with your finger, it's not going to hold together in furniture. So that needs to go. And then this one has, this is cool, but it's got this huge swirl here. And so again, depending on the design, you either keep a lot of this, or you just slice here and then you trim it, and then you save a lot of this on the end. Maybe go right here and right there with the design, and that gives you a fair amount of, there would be a super cool bench. And then you can just fill this with epoxy or some wood, sawdust, and glue. This one actually was fairly clear. There's a little bit of a rotten spot there, but this is another one where you could pretty much just either cut it in half or just cut it here for maximum usage, and then maybe slice it here for a long board and then use this for something else. But yeah, there's a lot of potential for a longer board. I have other ones like it. They just need to kind of get together. Like this one and these guys, they're both ash. And so once that is run through the surface has been smoothed, it's been planed, you're going to end up with something that looks like that. It has a kind of a high-low grain, but it can be really pretty. So anyways, that's the plan. I need to get cutting. It doesn't need to be super fancy. If you get 4 points of support, keep in mind that kitty litter boxes are about the same height as 5-gallon buckets. So wherever you need to cut it, the board will be supported. You can move this over to hold the middle of this cut if you're going to be in here, and that way it's not falling and picking up dirt if you're outside or in a driveway where there might be pebbles. Last thing you want to do is pick up a little rock, I don't know, pebbles or debris, any loose concrete. Last thing you want to do is get something stuck in your wood and have it hit one of your blades where you're trying to smooth something, because that's going to end up giving you lines until you replace that blade, or either replace it or sharpen it. So anyways, that's what I'm going to be doing. Those are my weapons of choice. Not the basketball, possibly a circular saw, speed square, and a Japanese style saw. And then there's the Western saw. It's an older one. You can tell by it has kind of a curve in the top of the blade there.